I'm a fan of fantasy, so I listen to Easy and Alan on their Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. During the show, you can live chat with Easy and Alan at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Rumour has it, Lenny only swings one way, with launch angle. Now here's Easy and Chris Allen.
There you go. I got a little launch angle now that we have a show before us. Farrell JD had his first podcast tonight. It was all baseball. I was busy taking notes and doing things, but I caught most of the show. So great job there, guys. Enjoyed listening to some baseball talk tonight. But welcome back to another Wednesday night on the Legend Sports Network at LennyFantasySports.com. This is a Fantasy Fan Sportscast with me, Easy Kill, and my co-host, which I haven't talked to in a couple weeks. We're going to talk about some turkey frying here in just a second. Mr. Chris Allen, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing all right. I know it's been a couple of weeks, but glad to get back in the saddle with you and looking forward to talking about some football.
Yeah, we had some issues last week between Wednesday being a holiday and some travel, and I already told you I had some sick. I have everything in my house is sick but me, so it's like I've had to deal with all that. So we weren't able to get together. Yeah, it is the season, but we will go. I do want to know how did the turkey? Was this your first turkey deep fry?
It was my first turkey deep frying experience. For those that don't follow me, at Chris Allen FFWX, I had my daughter. She recorded the video of me actually like dipping the turkey into the fryer, after we got the oil and stuff heated up and everything. So if you check out my timeline or like on Thanksgiving Day, you'll be able to check that out and see me trying to maneuver the turkey.
So it's at Twitter. So at Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX at Chris Allen FFWX on Twitter. We can see the video of you. No oil spill.
Oil spills, no fire, no explosion, no nothing.
Okay. So did you have a turkey fry kit, or is this did you configure something?
I actually used my brew pot.
Oh, okay.
I've used my brew pot, which I had to scrub out like a couple of times in order to make sure there's no oil residue left over. Got some peanut oil, picked that up from Costco, and I think my wife got me some more from Sam's. And then I got there's a turkey frying like hanging rack that I bought off of Amazon. So that's what I used in order to like lift it and and drop it into the oil and whatnot. Right. So I got that off of Amazon for it was like $15, something like that.
Right. I mean, I did my first deep fried turkey. I mean, I have to do probably 25 years ago before there was kits. Bob and Tom did it, on a show, and I was kind of, listening to that, and it sounded cool. So I went and bought some, there were no kits. The same thing. I bought a burner. Again, I had a brew burner, so I'd use that, and I did it. But we caught the deck on fire. I mean, it was.
Oh my God!
We had no idea. We just threw oil in a pot. We did not know to weigh the turkey in the water, with water first to get a level. We had oil over. If you look at certain spots on my deck, it took years to where you could barely see it. But now if and go look in an area, there's people that still come over that were here that night. We experimented the night before Thanksgiving. So it was a Wednesday night. We experimented so that the next day I could do one and it would turn out, that way. Let's put it this way. The experimented turkey was the only fried turkey we had that year. Mrs. Easy cooked the turkey in the oven the next day.
Okay.
It wasn't that it was bad. It's just, it was an entertainment and an experience that we weren't expecting, including the deck catching fire. Oil, wood, and heat.
Not a good combination.
Nope. Like I said, the turkey was still good. And deep fried turkey, I would still say, is one of my favorite turkeys.
Yes.
They turn out very good. Did you inject it and do that kind of stuff, or did you just...
Yeah, injected it with, I melted down butter, honey, and then I put a little bit of like garlic, and then I took out and I strained some Italian dressing as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I did all that and then injected it. I injected it the first time on, I think it was Monday night when I did it.
So you did it through, all right.
And I let it sit, and then I did it again on Wednesday night. I did, the second time on Wednesday, and then Thursday we were off and running.
Yeah, I've done all that I've done multiple since, so I got pretty good at it. Bought kits and got better. Now, since I bought a smoker, we've been smoking turkey for the last 4 or 5 years, and my family loves that. And it's obviously a little bit easier, and I've never burnt my deck down. So smoking a turkey and letting it cook, for 4 or 5 hours, and all that, it tastes delicious. So,
I had a bunch of folks hitting me up on Twitter after I posted that video because that video kind of blew up a little bit. And one of my buddies, he was telling me about. Have you seen these like pressurized smokers? It's like these little canisters, I guess, that you can get. That's like $100. It's like a canister looking.
Right, they're like a bullet. They look like a big bullet thing or a bomb.
You just hook up the propane directly to it, and then you can smoke it that way. No need for oil or anything like that.
Right. Now, I have 2 smokers. Obviously, the one smoker I use, it's just wood chips and butane. It's got flame underneath the chips that smoke it. So that turns out good. So
I never heard of that before. I'm gonna have to try and look for one because that looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's fun. Well, again, welcome back, everybody. We're glad, like I said, to be talking football. We got a lot to discuss. Our main topic today is just, this is week 13. It pretty much most people now are either in the playoffs or not. And then obviously there's a handful that, obviously this is a big week for you. So, we'll discuss that. The last 5 minutes of the show, we'll get into the main topic as far as, what you need to be doing, and we'll talk quickly about all of them. Meaning if you're out of the playoffs, what should you be doing? If you're already in the playoffs, what should you be doing? And then obviously if you have to win this week, what should you be doing? We'll hit on all those here when we get done. But join us at LennyMelnyFantasySports.com in the chat room. I saw Double A was out there earlier. Lou Landers was out there. I saw Farrell JD, who just got off a show talking baseball. So if you guys have questions or anything, let us know. The first thing I got to know, again, this is we've talked about it before. We call it a sportscast because we talk a little bit about everything and then obviously a fantasy twist. But did you partake in the pay-per-view of Tiger and Phil?
I didn't buy the pay-per-view, but I was following it like all day on Twitter. I saw when Tiger he had pulled ahead. I saw when he fell back behind, and then of course the eventual result. So, but I was happy at least to see the level of popularity that it got. I thought it turned out well, at least from a viewership and also from a gamesmanship type standpoint. I thought it turned out well.
I guess I missed out a tad because are you in the chat room? I don't know if
I see. Yeah.
I see. Double A. Thanks, Double A. We appreciate. He knows that I'm a big Bengals fan. Say thank you. Here, I was excited about the whole thing because I grew up, I don't know, it wasn't that long ago. I grew up with the, where they would play the skins games. They were in the winter, you would get, Nicholas and Palmer and, there was, it was like every other week there'd be another, 2 of them playing and they did these skins games things. And I enjoyed that all the time. So I was really excited about this. And then I got up, hit a few buttons and pulled it up and then realized what's pay-per-view. Not once in all the news did I read that this was a pay-per-view event.
Right.
And then part of me was like, I don't know. I couldn't pull the trigger. 1995, nothing. I've blown that in a week playing DFS. But I don't know. I couldn't pull the trigger on $20 for an all-day golf match because I don't know. Something in my mind made it seem like, I don't know. How can I realized they were playing for 9 million winner take all, but I'm assuming now because once I found out it was pay-per-view, I got a feeling everyone was getting paid. You know what I'm saying? It took the the excitement out of it for me a little bit, knowing that this is a pay-per-view event. What they're going to make $20 million and one of them's getting 9 and the network's popping 11. No, they're going to split that. So it really took away a bad. I would have rather watched a real $1 million winner take all than some $9 million made up thing that maybe was or wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
That's true, but with 2 golfers at that level of Tiger and Phil, come on, at least. Regardless of who won or who lost, they're both walking away with some money.
So, right, just advertising all that. I kind of knew that, but that was my point. They aren't big enough that Fox or CBS or NBC or ABC or ESPN couldn't have just had it on TV. You know what I'm saying? I guess that's what I'm saying. To me, pay-per-view to me is for things that require real specialty fans. You know what I'm saying? Maybe, I don't know. I just didn't. I don't know, is this the first golf pay-per-view event there was? I've never heard of it before.
I'd assume they're going to be more like this at the very least.
All right.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping, at least, because I mean, whether it's at the very least, I think that if it's not this match or like between these two golfers, I think this should spawn more similar matches. Because you got to think, I mean, if we could rewind back the times to even maybe like 10 years ago, you could have seen most of like the older golfers that really are kind of out of it now. I mean, like Greg Norman. I mean, hell, John Daly would have eaten this stuff up. Like
right. I mean, I see where some of, but that's my point. It's back to kind of watching the World Series of Poker. I know at that final table, you know, that those guys are playing for a lot of money, and if they go out of hand, they're going home with less. You know,
right.
I did not have that excitement with this. I just realized, wait a minute,
because there really wasn't a lot on the line for a loser.
Maybe there was. Maybe I'm reading into it. Obviously, I don't know exactly. You know, they were advertising this 10 million,
I think for this first match, with everything that was going into it, the advertising and like all the build up, all the talk shows and all these other things.
But why didn't I know it was pay-per-view? I bought into all that. And never once did what did I miss it? It said pay-per-view. I never saw that one time. I've been watching the ads for a month.
I didn't. I honestly didn't. It didn't dawn on me until I think it was that morning, until like Saturday.
Exactly.
Was it Friday morning or was it Friday?
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. Yeah.
Saturday morning. I turned it on. It was going to start in like 5 minutes. I thought, oh, that's cool. It's early Saturday morning. I'll turn this on and watch the beginning. And shit, it was pay-per-view. I'm like, that's bullshit. Again, and $20 isn't even that much, and I just couldn't pull the trigger. I don't know. So. Yeah.
I think we're probably with more of these bigger. I mean, even some of I'm assuming so. Like fast forward, like even just a couple of years, I could see even some of the like top professionals, but not like the big names. But let's say some of like the lesser known guys, they're going to start scheduling some of these matches, and then you'll probably see them on ESPN or whatever.
All right.
Watch them for free.
Okay, and but if they just told you $1 million winner takes all, and they really sold us on that was the truth,
I'd watch that.
I would too. I would too. You know, because that gives them a reason to play. You know, see, I used to be a big NASCAR guy, and when they changed a lot of these rules, you know, I used to love NASCAR because when I was a young adult, my dad was into racing. But back in the day, every race, the winner got so much money that they had to win to keep racing the rest of the season. Meaning, you know, I used to watch. I used to think, man, every Sunday is like watching the Super Bowl because these guys want to win today. You know. And now with this championship and the way the sponsorship, they've changed so much of it. That's bullshit now. You know, I mean, winning today's not important anymore. It's coming in third and getting points, you know. So that finality of every Sunday's race is gone to me. So I don't watch anymore. You know, it's not, you know, I just used to love going, man, I can't wait the last 10 laps when they're going to race 10 laps for, you know, $1 million or 700, you know, back in my day, it was 500,000. And, you know, even Dale Earnhardt, you know, would say, you know, I'm talking early, you know, because he was part of the big change. But, you know, he used to say, we had to win to keep racing, you know, meaning you got paid so much more to win the race. You didn't care about points, you know, so, you know, and that would be back to this, you know, I'd be much more enjoyable if I knew for a fact the winner was taking $9 million and Tiger had to go eat at Burger King afterwards. That's would have been a lot more, you know. So
have a little bit more skin in the game and make it a little bit more exciting.
There you go. Exactly. College basketball keeps going. The Buckeyes were 6-0, and they just can never beat, you know, an SEC team. So they got beat by Syracuse tonight. I was pissed. But I'm just going to roll into the college football championship week coming up. I mean, obviously, a lot of things I think now have to go right for our Buckeyes to get in. Obviously,
Bama has to win correctly.
The way I mean, there's different, but I agree. Bama has to win, so Georgia drops out. Oklahoma needs to lose, probably. Those are, and then obviously we have to win.
Yes.
Now, there's a few people that say if we won big enough and Oklahoma maybe sneaks by and Georgia still loses, maybe, but I think that'd be a stretch. I really think Oklahoma has to lose and Alabama has to beat Georgia. I think if Georgia wins, Alabama won't drop below us either. So, you know, so I know there's people out there that aren't Buckeyes fans. They harass me in the, you know, chat room all the time, but, hey, you know, we're both from Ohio. We're going to bring our Buckeyes into this. And did you get to watch the Michigan game? Enjoyable.
Yep,
Definitely enjoyable if you're a Buckeye fan.
I mean, well, we've already had this discussion. I went to the University of Cincinnati, so I'm not a Buckeye. I'm
I know.
a Bearcat. But in this particular case, I will root for the Ohio team, even though I don't have a huge stake in it. But at the very least, I mean, I watched it. I mean, I thought it was an enjoyable game. I was kind of surprised at how big of a blowout it was.
Yeah. Well, your Bearcats pissed me off, and I was actually excited about watching that game when they were playing Florida Central. I don't know, like 8 different initials in there, and I think they're in the top 7 now. Which I think they're undefeated. They do look good. I mean, I was hoping the Bearcats would win that one. Unfortunately, the Bearcats had already lost like 2 weeks before that, though. I mean, because I think coming up, that was going to be the big. I was hoping they were both going to be undefeated. That was going to be, a big
nice
game.
to see. Yeah, they lost. It was like it was two weeks prior or a week prior, or something like that.
Right. So, all right. Then let's get into some football things. Again, in the chat room, they already made fun of our quarterback situation in Cincinnati, so we'll talk injuries right off the bat. Obviously, Andy Dalton is out. AJ Green is in. Do you care for fantasy purposes? I think if you have AJ Green, you still have to start him in most cases because you probably draft him early enough. You don't have too many options. What do you think about the situation there?
It's a bad situation because even if it is like I do like Jeff Driscoll, I do think that quite honestly, if the Bengals were to move on from Andy Dalton, like while I don't think that Jeff Driscoll is the long-term solution, I do think if they wanted to hold and then wait for another quarterback, because I do believe the 2020 class has a better quarterback that's coming out, a better quarterback class that's coming out, then he could at least be a stopgap. But regardless, for this coming weekend, I mean, up against the Broncos, okay. I mean, yeah, you're probably in a do or die type situation where you probably wind up having to start him, but I wouldn't feel great about it.
Right.
So
I agree, but again, I can't imagine who you would play instead. I have the only close decision I have, and personally, I don't think it's close. I have a team where I literally it would be Doug Baldwin or AJ Green. So I do have because I traded for AJ Green while he was hurt. I gave up, I got a guy who had to win, and I needed, so I worked out a pretty good deal, and and now I'm not really sure. I really thought AJ Green was going to be a hell of a third option there, but now, I still think I'd play him even over Doug Baldwin.
Yeah, I can get behind that because again, with the way that the Seahawks are actually they're running the ball now more in neutral game situations versus passing. Tyler Lockett has become a very efficient wide receiver. David Moore is coming on as a wide receiver, like in that game. Like even though he's not he's not better than Doug Baldwin, but at least it does seem like Russ Wilson does trust him in some like high leverage situations. So while Doug Baldwin is still a capable wide receiver, he was actually held out of practice today with a groin injury. Now, this was the same groin injury that he was held out of practice earlier in the week last week. So it could just be a precautionary thing. And he'll probably wind up trending like towards playing, and he'll wind up playing on Sunday. But again, if you're looking for trust in your wide receiver and you're also looking for upside in your wide receiver, yeah, I'd play AJ Green over Doug Baldwin in that situation.
Right. I agree. And like I said, we really don't know. I think obviously the rest, I don't think you're playing any other Bengals other than Mixon. Not sure how it affects Mixon either. I'm sure they're going to hand him the ball. Now in the chat room, they bring in Mahomes. Someone's asking in there, where would you draft Mahomes next year? And DVD Dan out there, which was on my roundtable show last night. Thanks for being there, Dan. He wants to know if, he might go in the second, third, or fourth round. I've kind of learned it's back to, people were saying that last year, not Mahomes, the quarterback for the Texans. Watson, and he fell off. I mean, the problem is Mahomes is having a great year this year, but that doesn't mean it follows next year, meaning next year you could probably get a quarterback in the 8th, 9th, 10th round. Drew Brees went late in a lot of drafts this year compared to in the past, and he's doing fine for you. Meaning, I still can't imagine. I have a league where I took Rodgers early. That has not paid off, obviously, at all. So even in a 2 quarterback league, I'm kind of even learning then the quarterbacks. even the worst quarterbacks this year, the starters are getting fantasy points most of the time. I mean, it's just hard to give up those second, third, or fourth round picks for a quarterback that might have huge weeks, but you're still giving up. People always say that, but I think they always forget. Oh yeah, but he scored 30 points. But if you got him in the second, how many points would the guy have you gotten in the second get, and the quarterback you'd have gotten in the eighth? You have to compare both picks. Because if you pick Mahomes in the second instead of a quarterback in the eighth, you have to compare Mahomes and whoever you got in the eighth. And the odds are whoever you got in the eighth that wasn't a quarterback didn't get you, might not even be on your team. So where if you get a a decent running back in the second, or a top, wide receiver in the second, and then compare that with the running back or a wide receiver or a quarterback you get in the eighth or the ninth, you probably get more points overall. So, that's why the quarterback late thing is probably always the right thing to do.
I will always go that route, because I do think I would agree, though, with the general premise that, Mahomes is going to be the top drafted quarterback next year. He's going to be the new.
In home leagues, he's going in those rounds.
Yeah, he's going to be the new Rodgers, Brady. I mean, those type of quarterbacks that are drafted in the third, fourth, fifth round. Because he's going to be the hot new item. And so, I do think he's going to be drafted early. I will own absolutely none of them.
Right.
You'll still see me drafting Cam Newton in the 7th, 8th, 9th round, and then laughing on my ass all the way to the playoffs, because I'll be able to get much more depth throughout, from drafting running backs and wide receivers.
Especially in one quarterback leagues.
And
in two quarterback leagues, I still think, and JJ Zacharyson, he had a big article. He even proved, yes, in two quarterback leagues, you might have to step up more. I mean, you can't wait till the 12th round to get your first one, but you can wait till the 6th, 7th, 8th round, and get your first quarterback and still be competitive. I mean, he did the stats and stuff. I read the article. I mean, he just proved over the years, even in two quarterback leagues where people will take quarterbacks in the first and the second round, or in auction leagues, they'll put, second or third round money on a Mahomes. In an auction league, people are going to spend $40 or $50 on Mahomes, and that is going to be,
Well, actually, and the funny thing is that people. It's funny, especially in Mahomes' case, because Mahomes was one of those late round quarterbacks. It's just that this one happened to pop in such a big way. We're now going to be so quick to toss that strategy out the window and say that, well, now Mahomes has got to be the guy that you have to get in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, when we could still grab, another late round quarterback next year, assuming that Phillip Rivers doesn't hang him up, and assuming Drew Brees doesn't hang him up. If Mitchell Trubisky comes back, because Mitchell Trubisky, he was drafted after Mahomes, and he's sitting at he's at quarterback 10, I think, on the season right now. So it's and he was drafted even later. So it's there's still always going to be these late round guys that can continue to provide value to your team, that you won't have to sacrifice early round draft equity in order to pick up and put on your squad. So I will always be a proponent of drafting a quarterback. It doesn't have to be late. I think people get the late round moniker mixed up when it's late relative to where the rest of your league is drafting them. So if all of your league is drafting them in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, you wait till the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round, somewhere in there. You don't have to, late round doesn't mean the 12th round. You don't have to wait and say that, well, I'm just going to draft somebody like Blake Bortles every year and expect to win my league. That's not going to work. We're talking about late compared to where everybody else is picking up their quarterback.
But again, in one quarterback leagues, though, same thing. In single quarterback leagues, you could even wait that long if you decide you want to stream and you're still getting. If you still see good value players in that 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th round, then keep going. And go. You know what? I'm going to stream and roll with that. So the next injury is the Melvin Gordon thing. I just kind of want your opinion on one. I disagree with anyone that thinks he shouldn't be in the game. It was still early in the third quarter, so I don't argue that. People are bitching about that play itself. The thing that gets me is and there's a lot of hate in the fantasy world when our players or things go down. If this had worked and it was an 80-yard touchdown, no one would have said a word. If it even went for 4 yards, most people would not question much. Someone gets hurt and it's the worst call in the world. It doesn't work. That's not the way it works. So, that being said, when you're up that much, do you need to run trick plays? I've heard that argument. Here's where I come from. You know me, I think crazy about everything. Those are the things you're setting up. So when you're in the playoffs, which this team's going to be, that other team needs to think this is a play you may run. So for people to say it's stupid to run that play right now, they have no idea how many chess moves ahead or how many, things ahead, and people will look at me and go, no one's thinking that. Bullshit. These kind of coaches are thinking that kind of stuff. They're thinking we need to run this play right now, not so it works or doesn't work, but so when we're in the playoffs, playing somebody, they think we might run it. Yes, no, or am I crazy?
No, I think you're right, and I don't agree with the notion that Melvin Gordon shouldn't have been in the game at that point, because if people really went back and looked at it, the injury that Melvin Gordon had prior to the game versus the side or the injury where he actually sustained while in the game on that trick play, those are two opposite sides. So it's not like he aggravated the same injury that he had
I agree
beforehand.
Right.
So it was a fluke injury. So you can't really say that he wasn't supposed to be.
Aren't all injuries fluke? I mean, no,
right.
We're going to run this play because this is the one we always break our leg on. I mean,
you can't predict those. I mean, to me, it sounds like the same argument for people that are saying that. Well, it's like the 2-point conversion argument that we've had, I don't know how many times this season already, where teams that go for 2-point conversions or try for 4th down conversions, then they don't get it, and then immediately afterwards, everybody's like, "Well, they should have never done that anyway."
Right.
Now, and it's okay, you can't make that argument when, at least from a statistical point of view, or even just from a momentum point of view, if you want to get anecdotal, coaches are looking for a spark or looking for a way in order to fire their teams up. So yeah, if that converts, then that whole game changes afterwards. So you can't really make that argument.
With double Dan, I could maybe agree with with Dan here. He is saying that maybe Melvin Gordon just shouldn't been in the whole game, meaning he has had. I would accept that more than he shouldn't have been in at that point.
Yes, that is the proper way to approach it, because if he had already had an injury prior to, they were going up against a team that, they should have easily, they sort of rolled over them anyway. There was really no, there wasn't much on the line for the Chargers to begin with. Then after Melvin Gordon scored his 2 touchdowns, he should have been on the bench. Or at the very least, he shouldn't have even started the game to begin with. If he already said he had an injury, they should have held him out.
And same thing, Lou's giving me shit in the chat room too, saying, no, he disagrees with me, saying that you don't run that play because it's a trick play. You want to save it for later. What I'm saying is, they ran it because they probably don't want to run it later, but they want you to think they're going to run it later. It's back to, my poker senses, and people think I'm crazy as much as I've studied poker, that it really comes into play where you play the, I know he knows, so I have to do this. You know what I'm saying? So that's my point. I'm not saying, Lou, that they should have saved this great play to run and make it work. What I'm saying is you run that play so people know it's in your book. So when you don't do the double reverse, they still have to defend for it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so I think Lou's twisted me a little bit there. Yes, if you have a fancy trick play that works 90% of the time, you don't show that. But what you do is you show crazy plays that make them defend it so that when you run the play off of that's not crazy, you've got a better shot at getting 8 yards instead of 4.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also with the way that they lined up the personnel alignment on there. I mean, it was one of their more common personnel alignments, when they came out. It's not like they threw in 3 tight ends and a bunch of wide receivers, and it was some completely wacky play. The personnel alignment when they lined up and before the ball was snapped was common. So it was a different look of what the defense was expecting.
You're just trying to hold a linebacker for a second. That's it. Yeah. I mean, so you run those kind of plays. So my point is, though, everyone in the sports radio world and all these things are, they don't think of it in the way that we've talked before about these defensive coaches and how hard it is to prepare for someone that didn't, when a quarterback comes in the third quarter because of an injury, and then they just weren't prepared for him. So that quarterback goes off in 1.5 quarters because they are so fine tuned at how they're going to play against certain situations and players that they're not prepared when something strange happens. So that's why you run these kind of plays. So,
I think, and when it comes to plays like this, I think, especially in the sports media world, failure invites narratives for arm couch analysis to just say, yeah, I knew they shouldn't have done that to begin with.
Right,
the folks that have no skin in the game to say, like, they should never have done that.
And especially the fact he got hurt. That's the easy out. So now that being said, are you a Team Eckler guy? Do you think Eckler's now going to get the main carries for a week or two?
I think so. I mean, Justin Jackson, he looked pretty solid.
He did, but again, he's, I've been doing this a little while. Maybe not fantasy, but I've been watching football a long time. People are on practice squads for a reason, So yes, I do believe he looked good, but it's the same thing I just said. He also looked good in a game where the defense did have no clue what was going to happen.
Exactly. I would say like Eckler is the next man up. Like they've turned to him before in the past, and I think he's shown out to play very well. He did so last year as a complimentary player, and then he's also done it this year as well as a complimentary player. So I think that he should be the guy that should get the bulk of the touches. With Justin Jackson, he might come in and steal some of those goal line carries since he probably has 20 pounds. Like 20 pounds on Eckler.
Yeah. He's going to get the ball. I just don't think he's going to be the star. I mean, I would never.
He's not going to be the primary.
Right. No. I couldn't start him in any league, I don't think. I mean,
it had to be a deep league or something like that. I mean, you might, for the dynasty-minded folks, you might maybe pick him up, stash him, see how he looks, like that sort of thing.
And just in that same realm, it's back to Lamar Jackson. Again, the first week, even though teams probably knew he was going to be the quarterback, still didn't know what he was capable. So he ran for 100 yards. The second week, boom, the defense is prepared a little better, and he doesn't run for 100. I mean, these defensive coaches have seen enough that they can adjust pretty quickly. So do you think we're going to see Lamar? I think now they're saying he probably will start.
He will start. Yeah, I think that the latest report that I saw,
committed to that now. I mean, do we? And is that because Flacco is still out? Or
Flacco is still out. Yes, he is not been cleared.
If Flacco could play, maybe he would play. Is that maybe what we think? Because they're still in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, they are still in the playoff hunt because after Pittsburgh lost, I mean that still puts them at, they might be 2 games back. I'd have to check and see, but they're a game back. Yeah, the Steelers are at 7-3. Ravens are at 6-5. So they still have a shot at making it at getting into the playoffs. So yeah, I do think that with Lamar Jackson starting, it definitely allows. I mean, but again, while we think that there might be they have a
winnable game. The Falcons haven't played that good.
No, their defense is all banged up. I mean, they've lost so many starters, like on the defensive side, that they give up the second most yards for quarterbacks, and they give up the most yards to running backs, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So, I mean, with Lamar having that dual threat ability, I mean, if you are able to pick him up in fantasy leagues as a streamer, whoo boy, like he should be able to put up some numbers this weekend.
The other injury I have that's a fantasy thing a little bit is obviously Doyle is now out. You obviously can't use him, so the tight ends are tough anyway. But that puts Ebron, probably in the top, definitely the top 10, if not the top 5.
Mo Alley Cox, anybody? Nobody?
Nobody? No. Ebron would be my start there. I would probably start him over probably
Eric Swope,
but 5 different things. What do you think about Gronk for the first time in like 9 years, being off off the injury report?
I mean, we'll see if he winds up, Gronk smashing in the end zone yet again this week as they play. Who do they play? Minnesota this weekend at primetime game.
Okay, but again, I still think if you're going to take, there's only a handful of tight ends. If I was going to put, $100 on a tight end catching a touchdown, he would be one of those. Blake Bortles benching. Does that do anything for fantasy?
Blake Bortles being benched doesn't move the needle for me, but Blake Bortles and Leonard Fournette being suspended, I mean, that basically just takes me off of every single Jags player.
I think the Fournette loss is obviously more to that team than the Bortles loss.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Obviously, that hurts all the wide receivers. I think without Fournette being back there, they're just,
it's a wasteland. I mean, I don't know, like Cody Kessler.
In my big league, I have Fournette. I was just praying, and I'm in the playoffs, so I'm done. I was just hoping that I did not want a 2-week suspension because what he did look pretty. It could have been 2 games, and I just said, "All right, shit happened." I mean, I would have accepted it.
2 games.
I did. I did too.
I mean, especially since he came off the bench.
Right? He was not a player on the field at the time. So
what are you doing?
I know. But again, it's back to what. But again. We're not in the situation. We've never been in the situation.
Yes,
we've never. I mean, we've talked about it before. When I get in softball, I do stupid shit, and then I think, man, what did I think? And it's the adrenaline. I've been playing softball for 40 years, and I still go, what was I thinking? Why didn't I hit the cutoff man? Why did I try to throw a guy out from right field? I haven't been able to throw a ball more than 10 feet for 10 years. The adrenaline kicks in, and you think, I got this. Or whatever. So
I do wonder about
as a fantasy owner, it is stupid. I mean, now as a fantasy owner that has him and is already in the playoffs, and I have TJ Yeldon. So I kind of feel fine this week. Obviously, I actually like that they're sitting. I think he's going to come back in week 14, the first week of the playoffs. I think he's going to be, banging. I think he's going to come in with something to prove. So I actually kind of, I think right now they're packing gunpowder in it, and I'm going to shoot that bullet on week 14 because he had 95 yards in the first half, 2 TDs. He'd have probably got a touchdown that next play. I mean, the whole thing. He could have had. He got me 27 points in my league, and that was just in the first half. It could have been a 30-40 game point. So I really think and actually I meant to look that up. Who do the Jags, do you have a schedule up there? Who do the Jags play next week? Oh, they have the Titans. Unfortunately, that's pretty good defense, but still, I'll still take Fournette. I think they're going to run the ball. So I'll take that any day of the week. They're going to have to. That's all I had entries for that affected fantasy. Do you have anything?
No, I mean, it's Wednesday, so a lot of players are being held out for maintenance and like veteran days because like T.Y. Hilton sat out today. Stephon Diggs, actually, he was out with a knee issue, if I'm not mistaken. He missed practice today, so that's something to watch. We already talked about Doug
Gus
Baldwin.
Edwards. Gus Edwards was out today. A lot of people dropped Collins yesterday. If Edwards, I did not. I had Collins on a team, really thought about it. And instead I did not. I still have Collins. Now I don't need him, and I could have dropped him, but there wasn't enough to pick up yet. I was going to wait later in the week, and now that Gus Edwards is hurt, I definitely will hold off on that. So,
Sammy Watkins still not practicing, if I'm not mistaken, coming out of their bye week.
I couldn't start him now. I don't think I could start him.
Give me Chris Conley. I
couldn't start him this week, and it's going to be hard to start him. If he doesn't play this week, you can't start him your first week of the playoffs either.
No, I wouldn't. It's hard to trust.
Right. And DVD out there is saying, DVD Dan is saying that he loves softball. Hey, so do I. You know what? Lou Landers, it was way too hard on myself when I did something wrong in softball. I'm very competitive on the softball field. But I enjoy it. It's a fun game for people of all ages. So that's it with the injuries and all that. As far as the games this week, I'm just excited really about as soon as tomorrow. I'm kind of excited. The Saints-Cowboys game. The Cowboys have really turned around since they, got that high number 1 draft pick wide receiver on their team now. And throwing the ball to Zeke. If anyone would have told me that Zeke was going to get this many passes thrown his way, he might have been my number one running back this year. It really puts him right up there with Gurley. And definitely I would think above Gordon and a lot of the other running backs. Now, if they're going to throw to him like this, Zeke Elliott next year could be number 2 after the Rams.
Gurley?
You know, I still think Gurley is going to be the number one pick next year based on everything right now.
He should be.
But I think Zeke now has definitely put up some big enough numbers that you know, if they're going to throw him the ball. So what do you think? I know Lou's a big Cowboys person out there. I'm pretty excited about the game. It's in Dallas. You don't think it's going to be a fun game? You just think New Orleans is going to blow them out?
This is more for the potential injuries because if I'm not mistaken, 3 offensive linemen didn't practice today.
For
the Cowboys, Tyron Smith being the big one, because I know that Dak splits and also like Dak and Zeke splits like without him are like they're almost night and day. So if him plus the other 2, I can't remember the names offhand that didn't practice, if they don't go, I'm assuming at least 1 or 2 of them will go. Right. But if they don't make it and they have to sub in some other folks, I mean, Sean Lee's still out. I mean, but the defense has still been popping with Leighton.
If anything, that means they're probably going to throw even more to Zeke. They seem to like getting him out, you know, out and dumping the ball off to him. And
I hope so.
Hey, you know, unfortunately on those ends, when he's out there, he doesn't have to do as much to break one, you know, because he just has to, you know, he's not getting tackled by the big guys out there. So
yeah.
I'm pretty excited about it. So as far as fantasy goes, I mean, the Saints are just, I mean, Lord, you know, they're everyone on that
Kamara. Give me all the Alvin Kamara tomorrow. I've got a team in the playoffs with Alvin Kamara.
Would you take Kamara over Zeke right now in the draft next year?
Yeah.
Honestly, right, because what changes next year? There's no Ingram.
Most likely. Give me Alvin.
Yeah, it does change it a little bit. So, you know, then let's go to the other kind of topic, and we're going to go and start talking about some of the things to prepare for your playoffs. So let's just do this in order. Let's do the quick one first. Let's say you're already out of your playoffs. You know, we'll just say a pretty standard home league. What should you start doing now to prepare for next year? Just a quick, you know, one, I'm a fan of respectfully set your lineups. I know people do it. Some people, there's an argument back and forth. Do you do pickups? Do you do things like that? Once I know I'm out, I don't do too many major I do enough pickups to make my lineup, you know, fit, meaning if I have a team on, you know, on a bye or something, but I set my lineup and move on. You know, I don't get involved in picking up anyone off waivers or anything like that.
It's all about gamesmanship at that point. You just play it out. I mean, if anything, yeah, I might make a couple of
winning, right? I mean, you know, that's what I tell people. I've talked to people go, I'm out, I don't care anymore. Oh, you know what? No, sit your lineup and try to win. You know what? I'm not saying it's as fun as winning the whole thing, but what I always tell people, still, even the guy who makes it to the Super Bowl, one of them 2 are going to lose their last game. You can at least win and knock people out. And that to me is just, I've been there. I've been where, hey, I can't get in, but I want to win today to knock someone out, you know. Exactly. Sorry, Lou Landers, that I knocked him out. But, you know, so that's the fun part to me. You know, you set a lineup and move on. So if you're already out, obviously if it's a keeper league or a dynasty league, you probably some trade deadlines have already passed anyway. But, you know, I tell people if it's a keeper league or a dynasty league, you know, start looking at least on the waivers for players that have keeper eligibility or dynasty eligibility, and maybe drop people that you know don't, you know, and do those kind of things. So even though you're out, you know, be watching, you know, maybe someone who's on IR that people that are still playing can't use, but you could pick up, put on your bench. Again, I still say respectfully, they'll be able to set a lineup. I still don't do that stuff if I can't set my lineup, but you know, those are things you got to be doing in keeper and dynasty leagues, is looking for little, you know, diamonds in the rough, or at least people that maybe are tradable, or, you know, something like that. If something happens, you know, that way. So that's the first one. So then let's jump to the other end of the spectrum, is the people who are definitely in. And let's say you're, you know, if you're playing for something, you're playing for something. You can still be playing for positioning or who to play for. But if you're already in, are you doing anything special now? Are you picking up special defenses or kickers or handcuffs? What are you doing if you know you're definitely in?
Yeah, you're playing for the future. You're looking at some of the playoff matchups. So you're looking at defenses in weeks 13, 14, 15 with good matchups. You're picking up either your handcuffs if they're available, any of your opponent's handcuffs. If you see somebody else, like with if you're playing against somebody and if you're the number 1 seed and say the number 2 seed.
Yeah, I saw someone did that. I saw someone did that in our league today.
I might have made a couple of moves.
Yeah, I saw you did that.
I don't know.
I was picking up kickers and defenses, and you were picking up handcuffs. But
yeah, I was looking for handcuffs because I still like to I like to string the position as much as possible. That's my personal preference, but I would still advocate for doing that. If you see some juicy matchups that are coming up, go ahead and pick up those defenses now. And then if you want to make sure you have the depth in case the injury bug strikes, just like we were just talking about Melvin Gordon on like those fluke injuries that might happen, pick up some depth and get your handcuffs, get your opponent's handcuffs, and make sure that you're ready if that happens.
I would say in order, you need to now have your handcuffs. That to me is number one.
That's number one. If you have Todd Gurley, get Malcolm Brown. If you got
my fanism is number 2. I'm looking at setting up my kickers and my defenses because those can get me big points later if I do it right. Mm-hmm. And third, the other guy's handcuff, because the other guy's handcuff still most likely won't even get me any points. So I still move that down to third, and obviously I need to be able to cut. So that's why that's a hard one for me, because I'd rather roll with that second defense or that second kicker that's maybe playing West Coast or in a dome in week 14 or 15 or 15 or 16, which people make fun of, but that's kind of that's the way I roll on that. I've stayed away this year. I actually stayed away from other people's handcuffs except for Eckler, because Eckler, 1, he's playing behind Gordon, who has chicken legs, and 2, he gets point. I mean, he's averaging 10 points a game when he's not a handcuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he at least had value as a handcuff. So yeah. That's kind of the order if you're kind of committed. And then obviously if you're in, but you're battling for position, obviously you're setting your best lineup today. I am not a fan of trying to throw this game to get a certain buy or not a buy or get a certain, opponent or anything like that. Yeah. Again, fantasy gods, I'm not I'm a believer in a higher power, and I believe that higher power loves fantasy, and they will punish me if I do stupid shit like that. So, right. I try to not do those kind of things. So now let's go to, you have to win this week. Obviously trade deadlines are done. I mean, at this point, you got to do every little thing. You cannot think about next week. So you can't go, hey, I have the number 1 kicker. Maybe the number 1 kicker is the best kicker to play this week. I didn't look that up, but at the same time, if the number 1 kicker doesn't have a great matchup, you don't think, or they're playing in outdoors where it might rain, or who knows on Sunday, I'm sorry, you need to switch it out, because those 3 points might get you in the playoffs or whatever. The same with the defense. If you're rolling with the Bears or one of those, I think the Bears have a decent game this week. It's next week. I think they play Kansas City. So if I'm not mistaken, I don't know who the Bears have, but all I'm saying is if you have a decent defense, but they're playing against a bad team this week, you might have to drop them. I mean, if you have to win this week, those are the things you have to do, right? I mean,
Bears play the Giants.
Oh, okay. So this week I would roll with the Bears against the Giants. I think. I mean, you the odds are you're going to sack Manning once or twice. He falls down. He falls down once or twice a game. Yeah. So I would be fine. But what I'm saying is, if the Bears were playing Kansas City this week, you might have to drop them because you'd have to play for this week. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All the way down the line. Even to the quarterback. You might have and again, I didn't look up. I'm trying to even think, if you have a top quarterback that has a terrible matchup, but Jameis Winston's out there, or somebody who has a great matchup, I don't know. I mean, that gets a little harder. Aaron Rodgers has only been getting 18 points every week. And if I had to win this week, I don't know.
I'd stream.
Yeah, you might have to.
But they have a good matchup this week against Arizona.
And that's my point. But you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers specifically. I'm saying, you know what? You have to look at every matchup this week if you have to win. Yeah. Even down to your tight ends, whatever it takes. If there's and if that means dropping somebody that you think you're going to need next week, or it doesn't matter. You got to make those kind of moves. if you have to win. Any other in a must win situation for fantasy? What else do you do? I mean, obviously,
you look at your floor to median matchups, like your primary running backs and wide receivers, like those guys you're keeping in. But anybody that you feel that might be on the edge, I would say those folks, like you might try and pick up some of those high variance plays and try and swing for the fences.
Right.
So for this week, I'm looking at for some of the guys, the high variance plays, Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
He is in a fairly decent spot. I think he might be a good play. Tyrell Williams, if he plays, in a good spot, and if he doesn't play, Mike Williams. He picked up a couple of touchdowns, or at least one touchdown last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, their quarterback's on fire.
Yep. Traquan Smith off the injury report now, playing for the Saints and playing against the Cowboys tomorrow.
Now,
so those high variance plays could help.
Doesn't your opponent? I'm one of those. I always look at what my opponent has, but I don't care. I mean, I don't set a lineup 100% versus them in regular games. But when it comes down to a winner, a must-win situation, I am looking at my opponent to get an idea of, do I need the upside or do I need a high floor?
Yes, absolutely.
Obviously, in a must-win, a low floor doesn't help you at all. But at the same point, if you're going, hey, I am playing a team that's not even in the playoffs, and he's not set as, you don't do some stupid stuff if the guy's not even set in a lineup. Then you don't have to do as much. But if you're playing somebody who's maybe they need to win also, and it's going to be tight, then yes, to me, you have to go with upside players.
The other thing that you could also look at is when you go to actually look at your opponent's roster, do a little bit of game theory and see if you can get some of the players that are playing for the team that your opponent has rosters. So let's say, for instance, your opponent has Russell Wilson as the quarterback. Go check and see if David Moore's available on the waiver wire and play him on your lineup. If you have Tyler Lockett, but he might have been sitting on your bench, play him.
Right.
Or if you've been debating on Doug Baldwin, he might be a high variance play.
In most weeks, I would say that's something you can't do. But in a must-win situation, you gotta a couple points.
You could apply some game theory and say that, well, if your opponent is going to beat you with this player, how can you benefit from that play? So if they're playing that quarterback, see if you can leverage some of that in order to play the wide receivers that quarterback might be throwing to, as an example.
Right. Lou out there in the chat room is saying Bruce Ellington. He's probably now the number 2 there. Yeah, yep. I mean, and has good upside. They're throwing to him in the end zone. I mean, so I think that's a pretty good person to look at also. So because if you're in a must-win situation, your team probably isn't as tight as it should be. I mean, you have a loose end here or there, and you're just going to have to roll the dice. And then don't get mad if it doesn't work because you listen to us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're in the situation where you have to roll the dice.
Yeah, and you know what you're getting into when you play these high variance plays. I mean, we're not suggesting them on the sense that go start this person, they're going to get you 30 points this week. No, go start this person where their upside might be 20 points and might win you your week. But you know that the floor is 1 point or 0 points or something like that.
And see, the kind of person, exact same thing. I think if I had Watkins, I'd have trouble playing him this week if I have to win. You know, you cannot, that to me is a gamble you can't take because his floor is 0. Actually, I got minus a half a point a week ago with he only came in and he lost 1 yard on the one pass he got. Yeah. So, that's the kind of player which, in a normal week, you can't drop Watkins, but if I had no choice, I have to drop Watkins to get Sutton or to get Bruce Ellington because I have to win this week, then that's what I'm doing,
Yes. Yeah.
Which is also why, and again, I always pay attention to I am already in the playoffs in my main league and I have the number 1 waiver wire now. I always, try to build my team. I'll use the waiver wire early, and then I'll just kind of hold on to it if I can. I love going into the first week of the playoffs with the number 1 waiver wire because now I have flexibility of knowing I can drop any player on my team. Meaning I could drop an Aaron Rodgers and pick up a person and still keep my bench tight, knowing that, okay, I'll pick Aaron Rodgers up Tuesday morning because I have the number 1 waiver wire. It technically gives me another bench spot. So those are the kind of things, if you're in that situation, you could drop a player that you for sure wouldn't drop. But if you have and even look at that, if you go out and you're the third waiver wire, but the top two guys are out and you haven't even used their waiver wire in 9 weeks, you could probably go. You could probably in your head go, I'm pretty sure I got this, so I'll drop this guy knowing I'll pick him back up.
Absolutely.
So pay attention to that stuff. Pay attention to who's above you, and it gives you some options. So the waiver wire spot, use it. And now use it to your benefit. And like I said, and you can also obviously can use that number waiver wire to block somebody that you're playing against in the playoffs the first or second week that needs a tight end. Their guy got hurt. Now they're going to have to pick up tight end. Well, I might take that tight end first just to block him maybe,
Yeah.
So, use it to your benefit. So, anything else getting ready for playoffs or going into this week, the last week of NFL or fantasy?
No, I think I think we've hit on all the main key points.
We hit on all the cylinders.
Yeah, I think look at all your current matchups, all of your players, like in their situations. Look at your opponent's roster, and then look at the future matchups that you could try and leverage and try and pick up either streaming options for weeks like 13, 14, 15, or 14, 15, 16, things of that nature. So yeah, I think we hit on all the key points.
All right. And again, to me, it's a big week. I like the big game. I think it's two decent teams right now, hot going into Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously have a big week Saturday here because we got the championship week. A lot of college basketball well, there's a lot of college basketball going on, but a lot of college football games that matter. So that'll be a big deal. Then obviously Sunday. Who's the Monday night game? I haven't even
the Monday night game. That's I hope not. That's the Eagles and the Redskins, according to my spreadsheet.
All right. Yes, that's what I have also. I would assume that boring, but they both are pretty much in must-win situations.
Exactly.
Especially if Dallas wins on Thursday, right?
It's intriguing for the division.
Not a big fantasy.
Not a big fantasy. I know some folks might. Carson Wentz is still heavily on. Zach Ertz.
Right.
For those folks that have been still holding on to Alshon Jeffrey, and even like the Golden Tate folks, I know, and Josh Adams, since he's popped over the past couple of weeks. So yeah,
that's the problem though. There's so many guesses in that game. So
yeah, there's a lot of question marks and a lot of and especially considering it's like the week before the playoffs start for a lot of folks. I can't believe this would be a game that folks would really be hinging their entire seasons on, would be players from those two teams.
Right. Now, DVD Dan is saying, that Redskins, Eagles, boo, but not boring. So,
yeah, he
did mention there, Colt McCoy, I find fun to watch. I know he's been in the league, like 6 years now. It seems like every time he's in a game, I enjoy watching him. He's enjoyable. I don't think he's a terrible backup, and I don't think he's going to be a terrible starter. But
no, I don't. I don't think he's like a long time starter. I think
Sunday night game's big, obviously here because it's Pittsburgh and you have the Chargers. I love now that Sunday game where they change that schedule around, so they put better games on Sunday nights.
Yes, the flexing I think is good. Yeah. I do think it becomes problematic though, like especially this past week though, when it was the who played on, it was like the Sunday night game because like the Bears got flexed like the Sunday night game, and that's when Trubisky got hurt, and then they had to turn around, and then he was supposed to play on the Thanksgiving day.
We had Packers Vikings was last Sunday.
Yeah, it was like two Sundays ago, rather, where it was they got Chicago.
That was Vikings and Bears. Vikings
and Bears.
Right.
Yeah, and then Trubisky got hurt in that game, and then because they got flexed to the Sunday night game, and then they had to turn around and play Thursday early afternoon for.
Who cares about the players?
But not the NFL. I can tell you that.
Yeah, right. Amen. All right, everybody. I had a blast. We kept it under 2 hours. One of us is getting better. I don't know who.
I think it's you.
Yeah, you think I'm better? You think I'm learning to shut up sooner?
That's good that we're here with the Lenny Melnick's group because they're keeping you on a leash.
Oh, they keep me on a leash. Oh, yeah.
Because I sure as hell can't, because we'd be going until midnight.
Yeah. Well, we are going to go till midnight. Me and you're going to do another show after this talking about beer.
I know. We got to go talk to Mr. Brumley here.
I don't know if any of you care out there at the Lenny Melnick land. I've talked to a few of you about beer making. I do a podcast, which we've been on hiatus for a little bit, but we're going to do another one for the first. Yeah. Now you got to talk.
Well, this is an award-winning podcast, so I'm just letting
we're
people
an
know.
award-winning podcast because you won for brewing beer. But yes, the hbyob.com, that's the website. I'm going to plug it. But we do the HBYOB Brewcast. It'll be live on YouTube if you want to just if you just search HBYOB in YouTube, you'll find it, or go to hbyob.com. Sometime between 11:15 and 11:30. Me and Chris are going to be talking beer. And if you guys say something, I'll keep the chat room open if you guys want to listen to us chat about beer and beer making and stuff like that. So because I know less about that than I know about fantasy, other than I have done it. I have done it. I have made beer in the past, but I am on with two master brewers. So, I'm a master beer something, but I'm not a master brewer. I have no gold medal. So, if anyone wants to join us for that, like I said, hbyob.com, and click on the podcast. Sometime between 11:15 and 11:30, we're going to go live on YouTube. Other than that, Lenny Melnick, fantasysports.com. Tomorrow morning, Lenny will be talking baseball again at 9 o'clock. You know me, I'm terrible at the schedule. I know JJ works. I love that. Again, it's a true sports talk show at 2 o'clock. He talks college football, fantasy football, fantasy baseball. He does hockey. It's a real sports show. I recommend it. And then my next show will be football with Lou Landers at noon on Sunday, talking sit starts, which damn, they get harder this time of year. Sit start questions. So, but that's always fun. Lou knows what he's talking about, and I know how to ask crappy sit start questions and try to stump him. So it's a good time. Chris, where can people find your work?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX, and you can find my work over at 4for4 Football, and then also at Fantrax.
All right. And people out there at Lenny Melnick, fansports.com, they know where my work is. I'm just out there. So I'm out and about. And I do the roundtable on Tuesday nights. That's like 2 hours of just bullshit. And we talked last night about all kinds of stuff. A lot of new people have been showing up, and that's been a blast. So, Chris, I'm telling you, one night you're going to join us, right?
One of these days.
Maybe even after football. Maybe after football, we'll get you on and just.
Actually.
We talked about garbage disposals this week. We talked about some pornography and some stuff. We talked about figging. Figging. Don't Google figging unless you've got hours to kill. Do not Google figging. But we had a good time last night. We talked, and then obviously we talked fantasy sports. So, that's a good time. Everybody, thanks again. Say goodnight. We'll catch you next Wednesday. We have changed our time. We're not 9:30 anymore. We're at 10 o'clock because this network is becoming a real network. And what real network starts shows on the half hour? You know what? Nobody. We're big boy panties now. We're coming on at 10 o'clock. Chris, thanks again. I had a blast. I will catch you next week.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say good night. Good night.